if we use healthy buildings as the basis by which, or the reason by which we're making green buildings, really enhancing and protecting people's lives and well-being. And then, oh, and by the way, I'm also saving energy.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Subject to Change. My name is Jodi Smith-Anderson, and I'm one of your co-hosts, and I'm here with
Lauren Stanek.
Another exceptional co-host. And we're interviewing Rick Alfandre of Alfandre Architecture. He's an awesome guy that Lauren and I both know, and the opportunity to talk to him about his practice and about the achievements, especially with his new office building. We're going to also talk to him about bees. I don't know if he knows that. And Rick, you're on, you're here, you're with us. It's been a while since I've seen you in person, but then there's COVID.
Yeah, I know. I miss you. Virtual hugs from High Falls, New York.
Virtual hugs. I know we got to come up with a symbol.
I know, it's got to be a symbol. Maybe we could like learn the sign language for American Sign Language for hug.
I think it would be good if we did. I own Alfandre Architecture. Our offices are in New Paltz. I've been in business for over 29 years.
Wow.
I also own Eco Builders Inc., which I started in 2009. And right now we are a dynamic office of 6. Our building in New Paltz, which opened in 2014, actually not new, although it feels new. Multiple tenants, including Alfandre Architecture. And we built it. I built it primarily with my wife, Vicki Koenig, who's a nutritionist, really to obviously have a great place to work, but to set an example of, you know, what can be done. Worked in construction. I worked on a early passive solar home, and you know, I kind of began to tie the pieces together. You know, really wasn't until, say, you know, reading Ed Masria's book and also taking some courses in environmental studies relative to building design. You know, how do buildings perform? You know, what are heat load calculations, and you know, what's internal loads, and you know, the difference between little buildings and big buildings, and or you know, skin dominated or internally dominated kind of structures, and just beginning to see those interrelationships. There were you know, there was practical courses in structures and practical courses in environmental studies relative to how buildings work. And there were some professors who actually built things. Yeah, and those were my favorite professors. And in fact, my major professor was also, you know, built stuff and was also structural engineer. I would say that there's 2 kinds of employees. Ones that, well, there's 3. There are ones that will never learn how to assemble a building because they can't think in 3D.
Right.
And they don't last. There are people who don't have any construction background but are capable of learning in 3D and can learn how to assemble buildings. And then there are people who have some form of construction background, and they were good at it, and they are able to translate that physical body knowledge to the art and practice of architecture. And that's important, I think. It's not uncommon to hear from builders, particularly, well, it's not uncommon to hear from builders that they dislike architects or they dislike interior.
Oh, yeah, they hate interior designers even more, let me tell
Right,
you.
right. Right. And so it's important, I think, for these creative minds to understand what it actually takes to build something.
Yeah.
It's cold, it's hot, it's heavy, it's noisy, it's smelly, it's dirty, it's dangerous. You have to respect the people who do it and do it well.
Eco Builders Inc. sort of came about? Was it this kind of relationship between architects and construction that spearheaded that, or your background in construction? How did that angle come into play?
Well, I wanted to do construction management. I had built 3 homes for myself by the time I started Eco. You know, trickles out into green building space very clearly. Very frustrated with the delivery of quite a few projects, either the quality, the speed, or the business aspect of contracts and estimates and change orders and just the whole process, and then feeling disconnected between our intentions and the delivery, the results. Contractors saying they know better, and you know, you don't have to do it that way, we've always done it this way, blah blah blah, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. So that, and then I had a guy working for me. He was a natural contractor. He had his father was a steel fabricator, and he had a good relationship with, or a good way with contractors and subs and suppliers. And we had a recession and we had no work, and we had 2 projects on the boards that were ready to go out to bid. And I said to both of those owners, can we, you know, would you consider having us build them? And one of them went forward, and that really saved us through like a year in terms of cash flow.
There's synergies in there that I didn't really conceptualize until you said it. You don't have to be the CA on the job for an extra fee if you are the builder on the job actually making the plans work.
Right. We're architects first. Mm-hmm. So unlike the typical design build process, which isn't always the case, which is contractor driven, we're licensed professionals, and we have a license that we have to worry about. So we're not going to be forced to cut corners by the contractor. Not that contractors do that, but some do. I've actually done a design build project where we were really, it was hard. It was a very difficult relationship with the contractor.
The traditional design build, at least as it plays out in New York State, the contractor is the actual legal entity, mostly because the contracting entity is usually big enough to hold the insurance levels that are normally required by, for example, public work.
Right.
And the concern from the professional organization is that the architect will not be able to uphold their professional obligations, their responsibilities, because their salary is coming from the contractor.
If we were to hand out a survey, I guess, to owners who do a traditional design build route, and then something more similar to how you approach it, you know, what's the difference in the survey?
Well, the issue is that the most traditional design build projects are there's a not to exceed budget at the beginning. The contractor will say, I can deliver this project that you've described for this money. And we don't work that way. We will go through a design process, and then for a limited fee, we'll cost eco builders will cost estimate it. So it's still more of a traditional process. If I was an owner, I'm saying, well, I'm going to build whatever this 25,000 square foot office building for this number, and it's 2 years from now that I'm going to occupy it, or a year and a half. It's either going to be overpriced or under quality. I don't know how it's possible for them to deliver it at that number.
So there are situations where in order to make that fee, they say, hey, this design is great. However, if you do it this way, it's more cost effective. And as an architect, it
Right.
might be that, you know, yes, we can do it that way, but it doesn't quite meet energy code.
Right.
And
Yeah.
then there's a little pressure to do it that way.
Or other things like on this hotel we did when we worked for the builder. The builder wanted to, the contractor, they wanted to use, you know, it was an EFIS, not entirely, but a lot of it was EFIS, and they said, well, we're going to use this system, and we said, well, you have to use a drainage system, and they're like, well, no, you know, it's $3 more a square foot or whatever the number was, and we're like, well, no, you have to use it. Now,
Right.
this was 20 years ago, and it was just at the time when, you know, everything was blowing up in the EFIS world because people weren't using drainage systems.
The famous quote is value engineering is neither.
Right. Originally, they had planned to use a ground source heat pump heating and cooling system, and they quote unquote value engineered it out because it was, you know, so many hundreds of $1,000s more. But now they're perpetually addicted to propane. I've been talking about this recently. It comes back around to the the skin, the bones, and the respiratory system are kind of, that's the body of the building. And then we have the clothes inside and out. And we need to really, there's just a certain amount of money that the skin, the bones, and the respiratory system are going to cost.
I mean, to make it feel like our buildings are part of nature, or a biological part of nature, makes a lot of sense. You know, your website says something about climate responsive buildings. And I wondered if you could define that for me a little bit, because I think that that's a really unique kind of approach based on the words I'm reading, and I'd like to hear your definition.
Well, sure. I mean, it's fairly, for the most part, with most of the projects we do, which are low rise and not particularly large, you know, massive projects, we're really looking at orientation to the sun as a primary, or excluding the sun as a primary design concern, where you can put the living spaces facing south and give them proper shade for summer sun, and let the sun come in the winter, and organize what I call the service spaces on the north. And now you've oriented that home to the climate, you know, to the nature of the climate. It's not just that. It can be winds, it could be topography, there may be trees or other things that are going to influence it. Whereas if you look at say an office building, you know, you want to almost definitely try and exclude west facing glass, or minimize how, maybe not excluding it, but minimize how much glass is facing west. Beginning to really try and think about those the orientation of spaces particularly relative to the sun.
You know, nature's giving you all this great stuff.
Yep.
Why not pay attention?
Yep.
And use it?
Yep. And then, you know, then there are situations where you may actually have an opportunity to take advantage of passive air movement. If you have a site that's actually sloped, there are natural winds on sites, particularly if they're forested, which will bring cooling winds into a place and after the sun sets or early in the morning. So there are things to think about depending on the nature of the site. But
now you have your award-winning office at this point.
Yes, let's get to that.
Let's talk about it, because I think that this is a perfect segue, because I'm assuming that you did all of these things for your office and then some. So what were some of your goals and initiatives?
if you're facing Main Street, you're facing a bit more than 30 degrees west of solar south. But we have very deep overhangs, like 4-foot overhangs on the south side on the upper roof, and then we have a bolted on, I call it a shado device. It's a shading canopy. It also gives some texture to the surface of the building. It creates a walkway around the building, but also shades a lot of the south facing glass for those offices. Triple pane, double gasketed, tilt in, hinge in.
It's tilt turn?
Tilt turn, yeah.
Those are like my favorite things. When I lived in the Netherlands, every place had tilt turn windows. So you could open them like a casement, or you could open them like an internal awning.
Correct.
Really cool.
Those were hard for me because I really wanted to buy American and I couldn't find anything that was close. I heard that there was that Wyeth company that was supposed to manufacture in New Jersey, but I don't know if they're actually doing it in New Jersey. I bet there's some stuff out there, but we haven't been able to track it down.
Yeah. Wow.
The thing, there's not as much glass on the west. There's much less glass on the north, but it's offices. People need light and ventilation, but it's not a lot of glass. It's, in our case, it's insulated concrete form walls with 2 inches of additional foam above grade for EFIS. It's a pre-engineered, pre-manufactured roof system by Bensonwood, which is it's an R50 on top of glue lambs.
And boy, even in the video, that SIP approach to the roofing went like this. I watched the video, and the ICF, the insulated concrete forms, took a little time and built up, and then you put the windows in, and then all of a sudden, boom, 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 the roof was on.
They delivered the glue lambs, all the SIP panels, which also included a vertical wall panel, early Monday morning, and by 2 o'clock Wednesday, they were done. It was dried in, and he comes up and says, "Well, we're out of here." I said, "What?" I think we did 3 blower door tests. So we did a blower door test, and there was some leakage, but very little, but below passive house. So we have two heat pumps with air handlers and the ERV, one ERV. And we were originally, I think we had a 2-stage heat pump system, and our design engineers were certain we were going to use way more energy than we use. And they couldn't wrap their heads around what the air leakage was going to be, or lack of air leakage. So I went ahead and boosted the equipment, quality to the green speed, which I think, I don't know what the right word is, but it goes it modulates way down. So the heat pumps, they hardly turn in the, it's 90, 95 degrees outside. It seems like they're hardly working.
So you're being incredibly deliberate in delivering the air changes you need and conditioning them the way you need, so it eliminates waste. And I think that's the key with getting to the goals of just building in general, is really making sure that all that waste is eliminated. We're so cavalier about waste.
To build the building today, I think we would be looking at a mass timber building. I would be really seeing if we could do everything with glue lambs and CLT and right. I think the CLT manufacturer, when that becomes more prevalent, or something similar with Northeast regional wood. That'll be, I think, transformative in that space.
Yeah.
I'm imagining that Benson Wood has been working on it. I know that New Energy Works has been. So we'll see what, how that trickles out.
Great. And CLT is cross-laminated timber. We
Right.
might include my saying that in the video. We might just put it in the notes.
And then what is it? Board laminated timber? There's another one.
There are a whole bunch.
I know.
There's like there's nail laminated
Nail
timber,
laminated and dowel laminated.
dowel laminated timbers.
Yeah.
I see the diagrams popping up as we talk.
Yeah.
Zero water.
Yeah.
Was that like, were you aiming for that, or was that a bonus surprise when you got there?
Well, we were aiming for lead silver, then lead gold, and then
lead platinum.
Then
And then you
lead
got
platinum. Right.
Overshot.
We
In a
overshot.
great way.
Overachiever.
Yeah. And then I was confounded by the energy bills, and so Ian Shapiro did some analyses for me and said, yeah, you're definitely net positive. So then we submitted that to the New Buildings Institute, and they said, yeah, you're right, you're net. So they put us on the list. I had an intern. He was a student at SUNY ESF and so I put him on recertifying the building. And then Tracy Hall said, well, there's this lead zero stuff too. So I put Ryan on the lead zero stuff. So we recertified the building, lead platinum, and we also submitted for lead zero water, lead zero energy, lead zero carbon. And they gave us the lead zero water and lead zero energy.
You earned the
We earned them. We earned them. Yeah, the embodied carbon analyses, I'm sure, are coming on them. It makes me tired thinking about it.
AutoCase has a great plugin to do that we're exploring, and Tally is really good, and the EPDs are getting more prevalent, the environmental product declarations.
Yeah.
But it is really just unfolding now, the awareness of embodied carbon. But I saw this slide the other day from Interface. They assessed what we expect the building market to look like from 2020 to 2050. And in that time frame, 51% of the carbon will be emitted through operational carbon. 49% will be the embodied carbon. So it's a big deal.
Wow.
Big deal.
Wow.
So we gotta look at that too.
In the last few months, the whole notion of zero carbon economies is really come, I was just looking at something Bloomberg Green yesterday, and I'm like, who would have thought even just a few months ago that China was talking about, being a zero carbon economy. Now, just talking about it.
Yeah.
Why be kept by bees?
You're owned by the hive.
I want bees so bad. I've gotten so much resistance. So I'm so excited because in my newfound freedom, I can do bees now.
Yeah. Well, you want to find a bee club and a bee mentor, because bees are complicated. Honeybees are complicated. No.
Oh.
Sorry, it's a lot of work.
That video of you taking a swarm that was on a tree and cutting a tree and knocking, and I was like, oh my God, that's beautiful and terrifying.
Okay, maybe I'm off the bee train.
Well, actually, swarm.
My natural wildlife habitats with pollinators.
Capturing a swarm is one of the most fun things to do. If you don't guide the way you want them to make things, they'll make it however they want to make it, and it's actually rather beautiful, but it can be a mess for a beekeeper. So there's systems and methodologies for keeping bees, and there's no one right way. And if you read or watch videos, there's tens of thousands of different ways bees are kept around the planet. But I would say probably the most interesting piece is the way that they make natural honeycomb in that catenary arch shape, given the opportunity. But it's definitely a lot of work.
So it's like discovery, and it's community, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like a little bit of fascination, actually a lot of fascination with how nature does things.
yes,
I find that incredibly beautiful.
it is.
What's the most important initiative right now? It can be anything. It doesn't have to be architectural. What to you is the most important initiative right now?
What would you love if 20 other people all of a sudden started paying attention to?
Yeah.
Oh, well, paying attention to our business and giving us lots of large work, profitable work.
Oh man.
But beyond that.
Right. Beyond that, I'm focused. You asked me who's my favorite person. I'm focused on
Yay!
healthy buildings, right? So
Joseph Allen.
right. My focus on building our office building was not about saving energy. It was about creating a healthy, productive work environment. So you're telling me that a lead building might be 40 times more, the money that's spent on that, yeah, it saves this energy, but the productivity benefits, the health and wellness benefits, the absenteeism avoided,
Yeah,
is
huge.
40 times more valuable than that oh, okay, now I get it. That's why I decided that I needed to build the building, that I needed to have a place to go where I could be productive and not complain about being too cold, too hot. I don't like that smell. It's moldy, blah, blah, blah.
And have like the cognitive study is really huge. The one from Syracuse Center of Excellence.
Yes.
So basically you have come to the revelation that we build buildings for people.
Wow, wonderful.
Well, we build buildings for the wellness of people,
right,
and not just their
not to house them.
Yeah, well, and also not just what they see, right? It's not just, oh, that's a cool design.
Yeah.
And it should be beautiful. There's no doubt. It's about feeling good, and so again, that's part of that multidimensional piece. There isn't one way. They have some analyses in there that are economic analyses. And this book came out, they were ready to publish it before COVID hit, and then it came out at the beginning of the lockdowns. And
who's your hero? Who should we all be following right now?
Well, again, that Joseph Allen would be my I would say follow. Again, you could go online and Google Joseph Allen and read some of the articles that he's written that are in the New York Times and Washington Post, just to get a sense of healthy buildings. It really, if we use healthy buildings as the basis by which or the reason by which we're making green buildings, then we take the conversation away from, oh, I'm saving energy, to I'm really enhancing and protecting people's lives and well-being. And then, oh, and by the way, I'm also saving energy.
Fantastic. That's awesome.
So I actually have 2 more questions, but they're not really for the podcast.
Okay.
Well, we should probably wrap up and then I'll ask you.
All right, well, let's do the wrap-up statement. We're really, really glad you joined us, Rick. This has been phenomenal.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm gonna again be hard pressed to edit it.
How do you spell Minnewaska Lodge?
Sound it out.
I did. I want to fact check it.
M-I-N-N-E-W, Minnewaska.
Oh. That cleared a lot up. Thanks.
There you go.
We're cutting this part, right?
Right.
Yeah, we're right in the front. All right. Well, I have to do some grocery shopping and make some dinner.
Thank you.
Love you
Love you both.
Thank you so